Nurse Lina Reyes was halfway across the shattered village street when the minefield woke up beneath her unit. One blast split the convoy in half, throwing Sergeant Mason Hale against a burnt-out ambulance, while the war dog Atlas slammed his body across Lina's legs and refused to let her move. Captain Maravos screamed for everyone to hold position, but Major Owen Creel was already shouting that the child's cry beneath the collapse. "Squoy, what a trick!" A dying radio echo. "Nothing worth risking a second teammate." 10 Atlas did something no one expected. He crawled toward the rubble with Mason's cracked jaw tack clenched between his teeth, whining at a hidden rat pat buried in the dust. Lina heard the small voice again. "Please, don't leave me." But why did Creel look more afraid of the patch than the mice? "Before this rescue begins, tell us where you are watching from tonight. Leave your country name in the comments so this community can find you. And if you believe courage, loyalty, brave dogs, and hidden heroes still matter, subscribe to Mercy Under Fire." The first explosion did not sound like thunder. It sounded personal. It cracked through the narrow village road with a hard metallic bite, the kind that snapped breath out of lungs and turned every thought into white noise. 1 second, Nurse Lina Reyes was walking beside the last medical vehicle, checking the pressure bandage on a soldier's arm. The next, the world jumped sideways. Dust swallowed the convoy. Glass scattered like frozen rain. Someone screamed her name, but it came from too far away, as if the village had suddenly stretched into miles. Lina hit the ground shoulder first. Her helmet slammed against stone for 3 heartbeats. She could not feel her right hand. 10 pain returned all at once, hot and sharp, crawling up her ribs and blooming under her collarbone. She tasted copper. She tried to push herself up, but a huge weight pinned her legs. Atlas, the Belgian Malinois, had thrown himself across her before the second blast. His dark ears were flat, his body rigid, his chest heaving against her knees. Lina stared at him through the curtain of dust. Atlas was not her dog. He belonged to Sergeant Mason Hale, the quiet, cool handler who had spent the last 6 months pretending his limb did not hurt. But Atlas had always watched Lina like he knew something about her that she had never said aloud. "Atlas," he whispered. "Move." He did not. A second explosion answered from the far end of the street. The ground lifted. A wall collapsed. Men shouted from behind a curtain of powdered concrete. The convoy had been split in two, the front element cut off beyond a row of broken homes, the rear element trapped beside a burned-out truck. Between them lay a street that was no longer a street, only dust, debris, and hidden death. "Minus," Captain Mara Voss shouted. Her voice cut through the chaos with the authority of someone who refused to panic. "Nobody moves. Check your positions. Sound off. Names came back, fractured and coughing. Hail," Lina called. A groan answered from near the medical truck. She twisted carefully and saw Mason half buried beneath a bent door panel. His left sleeve was soaked dark. Blood ran from a cut above his eyebrow and disappeared into the dust on his cheek. His dog tag chain had snapped, one tag hanging from the corner of his vest, the other missing. Atlas saw him too. The dog's body trembled, torn between command and instinct. "Go to him," Lana urged. Atlas looked at her, then at the ground between them and Mason. His nose worked fast. His paws dug into the dirt once, twice, then stopped. He gave a low growl that raised the hair on Lena's neck. He smelled something. Not blood, not smoke. "A warning." Lena froze. 10 feet away, Private Ellis tried to drag himself behind the truck. Atlas Barretland turned. Alice stopped mid-crawl, eyes huge. Captain Voss understood first. Nobody moves unless Rise tells you. Alice has sent. That order landed heavier than the dust. Lena had been a field nurse long enough to know what it meant when a commander trusted a dog over a map. The whole road might be seeded. The blast had not just attacked the convoy. It had arranged them. Lena lifted herself inch by inch, careful not to shift her lower body beneath Atlas. Mason, she called. Can you hear me? Unfortunately, Mason rasped. How bad, do tell me? He gave a humorless laugh, then winced. Arms ugly. Legs worse. Atlas on me. Good. His eyes narrowed as he looked down the road. Hey, Balachu. Yes. Then don't argue with him. A cry rose on the far side of the village. Everyone went still. It was faint, broken by dust and settling rubble, but it was unmistakably human, small, high, terrified. Help! Lena turned toward the sound. Across the mine stretch, beyond the crushed schoolhouse with its roof folded into the street, something shifted beneath a slab of concrete. For a moment she thought she imagined it. Then the voice came again, smaller this time. Please, a child. The word passed through the unit without being spoken. Even the wounded stopped groaning. Major Owen Creel emerged from behind the rear vehicle, one hand pressed to a bleeding scrape on his jaw. He was the intelligence officer assigned to escort them through the village. Clean uniform under the dirt, eyes too sharp for a man standing in a minefield. He looked not at school, but at the faces of the soldiers who had heard the cry. No one moves. Creel snapped. Tat. Structure was cleared on drone feed. There are no civilians inside. Lena stared at him. Then, who is calling? Echo. Radio bleed. Stress response. Pick one, the child cried again. Creel's mouth tightened. Captain Voss stepped toward him, then stopped when Atlas growled. Her boot hung an inch over the ground before she carefully lowered it back where it had been. Major, we have a possible survivor. We have a compromised, rotated personnel, and a hostile area. Our priority is extraction. Our priority, Lena said, voice shaking with anger. Yes, whoever is still breathing. Creel looked at her as if she were a problem he had expected. Your priority is to follow orders. Nurse Rice. Atlas lifted his head, his ears pinned forward now, not at the mice, not at Mason, but at Creel. A low warning rolled from his throat. Mason heard it. Even bleeding into the dust, he turned his head. Atlas, he whispered, stunned, easy. But Atlas did not seen that reaction only once before, years earlier in a place she tried not to remember. A dog hearing a lie before humans had proof. The schoolhouse groaned. A piece of wall slid loose and crashed into the street. The child beneath the rubble screamed, then fell silent. Lena's heart ceased. Captain, she said, I need a route. Voss scanned the ground, jaw clenched. We don't have one. Atlas suddenly rose off Lena's legs, slowly lowered his nose to the dust. He stepped once, then stopped. His paw hovered above a cracked tile. He backed away, moved 3 inches left, sniffed again, then looked at Lena. Mason's voice came low. Here's marking a path, Creel shouted. That dog is not certified for this field. Atlas ignored him. The dog reached Mason first, nudging his vest, searching with frantic precision. Then he dug his teeth into something half buried beneath Mason's shoulder strap and pulled. A cracked metal dog tag came loose, smeared with blood and dust. Atlas carried it not to Mason. He carried it to Lena. He dropped it in her lap, then turned toward the schoolhouse and whined. Lena picked up the tag. On one side was Mason's name here. On the other, scratched by hand into the metal, were 3 letters that made her throat close. MRC, Mercy Red Cross, her old emergency call sign from a mission that was supposed to have been erased. Creel saw it from where he stood. For the first time since the blast, fear crossed his face, and beneath the collapsed school, the child whispered one more word, Mercy. The word should not have reached her. It was too soft, too buried, too impossible under tons of concrete, twisted rebar, and the ringing aftermath of explosions. Yet Lena heard it with perfect clarity. Mercy, not nurse, not help, not soldier. Mercy. Her old call sign slipped through the dust like a hand reaching out of a grave. For a month she was not in the village road anymore. She was 26 again, kneeling in a burning aid station, one hand inside a soldier's torn vest, the other holding a radio slick with blood. She remembered calling into static, mercy to any station, mercy to anyone alive. She remembered being told later that no recording survived, no report exists, no rescue happened under her authority. She remembered Major Owen Creel signing the final statement with a calm hand. Mission incomplete. Civilian presence unconfirmed. Medical action unauthorized. 10. The past snapped shut. Mason coughed hard. Blood speckled his lips. Lena shoved the dog tag into her vest pocket and crawled toward him, following the exact prints Atlas had made. The dog stood over Mason's injured leg, eyes fixed on the ground, ready to correct her if she shifted wrong. Talk to me, Lena sighed. Mason tried to smile. You always this bossy, only when men are bleeding on my road. Good road manners. Arm first. She cut open his sleeve. Shrapnel had torn through the muscle near his bicep, ugly but survivable if she controlled the bleeding. His thigh was worse. The blast had driven metal into the outer side of his leg, and the blood pulsed too fast. Lena pressed gauze hard into the wound. Mason's face went gray, but he did not scream. Atlas pushed his head under Mason's hand, forcing the handler's fingers to close around his collar. Hold him, Lena ordered, and stay awake. Mason swallowed. That kid said your call sign. I heard. Creel heard too. I know. His eyes found hers. Why would a child buried in a village school know a call sign from your old unit? Captain Voss lowered herself nearby, moving only in the safe marks Atlas had given. Her face restreaked with dust, her left cheek bleeding, but her eyes remained steady. Rise. Can Hale be moved? Not. I can stabilize him here. How long? 10 minutes before blood loss becomes a bigger problem. Let's see if he crashes. Voss looked toward the schoolhouse and the child. Lena listened. Silence. The kind that terrified medical workers more than screaming. Unknown. Lena's seat. But if that structure shifts again, we lose whoever is under it. Creel moved behind them. Careful now. His arrogance thinned by fear. Captain, you will not divert resources. We have protocols. Voss did not look at him. Your protocols failed to mention an active minefield in our route. That intelligence was time sensitive. Was it wrong? His pause was too small for most people to notice. Lena noticed. The dog's head snapped toward Creel, teeth barely showing. Mason's voice hardened. Atlas doesn't lie. Creel's eyes narrowed. Control your animal, Sergeant. He is controlled. The schoolhouse gave another low groan. Lena rose tall one knee. Captain, I need to get to that child. No, Creel said immediately. Absolutely not. Lena turned on him. Why? Because I said no. That is not a reason. It is when I outrank you. Voss finally faced him. Major, your rank does not erase a survivor. Creel stepped closer, anger replacing fear. And your sentiment does not override operational security. That building was flagged before entry. We were not sent here for a school rescue. The words struck the road cold. Lena stared at him. Then what were we sent here for? No spoke. Even the wounded seemed to hold their breath. Creel's jaw worked. You were sent to provide medical support for a recovery operation. A recovery of what? His eyes flicked toward Mason's cracked dog tag in Lena's vest pocket. Atlas lunged step. Creel flinched. That flinch gave him away more than any confession. Mason tightened his grip on Atlas' collar. What did he smell on you? Creel ignored him. Captain Voss, if you allow this nurse to cross that field, I will file charges for reckless endangerment. Voss looked at Lena, then at the schoolhouse, then at the broken bodies of her unit. Command was not the absence of fear. Lena knew that. Command was choosing which fear deserved. Obedience. How many casualties can you manage if we stay pinned? Voss asked. 3 serious, 4 moderate, 1 critical. If Mason keeps bleeding. And if we move wrong, more. Voss nodded. Ben. What? Atlas is our only map. Mason shook his head. I can find disturbed ground, chemical residue, trypsin, human sand. But he is not a miracle. No, Lena. Seat. Hair. Vanna. Atlas looked at her as if he had been waiting for those words. The dog tugged free from Mason's weakened hand and moved toward the mine street again. He did not run. He placed each paw with unbearable patience. Nose low, tail stiff. He stopped beside a bent bicycle frame, sniffed, backed up, circled a patch, then looked over his shoulder. Lena grabbed her medical bag. Mason caught her wrist. His grip was weak but desperate. You follow him exactly. Not almost. Exactly. I know, no, rise. Listen. His eyes shone with pain and something deeper. Atlas has been reacting to that school since before the blast. He pulled at the leash when we passed the gate. I thought it was explosives, but it was her, the child, my bae. Mason looked toward Creel, or something near her. Lena leaned closer. Mason, why is my old call sign scratched on your tag? He hesitated. The answer cost him. Because someone told me if I ever found Mercy alive, I was supposed to give it back. Lena's breath stopped. Before Mason could answer, Creel drew his sidearm. Ina, he said. Every soldier who could move when Regia. Captain Voss' voice dropped into ice. Major, holster that weapon, Mason. But at Atlas, the dog is compromising the mission, he said. Atlas stood in the dust between them and the schoolhouse, still as a statue, one paw lifted above a place no human could see. From under the rubble, the child began to sing. A weak, trembling tune Lena remembered from a night of fire and broken radios. The same lullaby she had sung to keep wounded men conscious. And Creel's hand started shaking. The lullaby turned a ruined street into a memory none of them knew how to survive. It drifted from beneath the collapsed school in pieces, each note cracked by dust and fear. Lena had sung that song once in a field clinic without lice, her voice nearly gone from smoke. Because there had been children trapped behind a wall and soldiers dying in rows and no morphine left. She had sung it because silence had felt like surrender. No report should have remembered it. No child here should have known it. Major Creel's pistol remained pointed toward Atlas. The dog did not back away. His paw still hovered over the invisible danger, his body blocking the path, as if he understood that one wrong movement would kill them all. Captain Voss lifted her rifle, not fully aiming, but enough to make the message clear. Lower eyes darted from Voss to the watching soldiers. His authority was bleeding out in front of everyone. That animal is leading you into a hostile trap. That animal just kept half my unit alive. Voss sighed. Captain, holster 8. The silence stretched. Finally, Creel lowered the weapon. But he did not look defeated. He looked calculating. Lena has seen that expression before, on men who could lose one battle and still bury the truth in paperwork later. She turned away from him. At last, the dog glanced back. Take me, Mason groaned. Lena. It was the first time he had used her first name. She paused. You get the kid, he said. But you come back, she wanted to promise him. Instead, she tightened the strap on her medical bag and nodded. Atlas moved. Lena followed. The path was not straight. It bent around a cracked doorstep, crossed a strip of cloth, half buried in dust, paused at the shadow of a fallen sign, then angled toward the school gate. Lena placed each boot into Atlas' prints. She did not look at Creel. She did not look at the wounded man watching her. She looked only at the dog's paws and the rubble ahead. Every step had a sound. Her breath, Atlas sniffing, loose gravel shifting under her weight. Somewhere behind her, Mason muttering numbers to stay awake. Halfway across, Atlas stopped so abruptly Lena nearly stepped into him. He swung head right. His nose touched the dirt beside a child's sandal. Lena's chest tightened. The sandal was blue, small enough to fit in her palm. Its strap had little yellow stars on it. Atlas sniffed it, then looked toward the school's east wall. Survivor trail. Voss called quietly from behind. Lena answered without turning. Maybe Creel cutting or stashed evidence. Lena ignored him. Alice took 3 more careful steps. 10 began powering out a mound of broken plaster near the school entrance, not digging wildly, tapping. He looked at Lena, then at the rubble, then pressed his ear close to a crack. Lena dropped beside him. Hello, she called. My name is Lena. I'm a nurse. Can you hear me? For several seconds, nothing. Then a cough, a tiny, shredded cough. I hear docs, the child whispered. Lena closed her eyes in relief. Ian. His name is Alice. He found you, big dog, the bravest. A faint sob came through the concrete. I can't move. I'm coming closer. Tell me your name. Nima. Lena opened her trauma powers muffles. He hammered the beam through a gap between 2 slabs. Dust glittered inside the darkness. She saw fabric, fingers, a cheek streaked white, and one terrified eye. Nima was wedged in a pocket beneath a collapsed beam. A piece of metal pinned her lower body. The space around her looked barely large enough for a child to breathe. Lena forced calm into her voice. Nima, listen to me. Are you bleeding? My leg hurts. Can you wiggle your toes? A pause, a pause. Oh, when that's good. It was not good, but hope was medicine too. Atlas suddenly stiffened beside her. His nose went to the gap, then to the rubble above, then to the ground behind them. A low whine escaped him. What? Lena whispered. Then she heard it, a ticking, not mechanical exactly, more like small stones falling, one after another, from inside the ruined wall. The structure was settling. Captain, Lena called, voice low. We have a live child, trapped with possible crush injury. The rubble is unstable. Voss answered immediately. Can we reach her? Not without clearing debris. That could shift the building. I.S. Creel's voice came hard. Then leave her. Mark location for engineering. Lena's head snapped up. She might not have time. Neither. Zaw, you're wounded. Mason shouted from across the road, voice ragged. Krill, shut your mouth. Lena glanced back and saw him slump. A soldier pressed harder on his wound. She was split in half now, just like the unit. Behind her, Mason was bleeding out. In front of her, Nima was trapped under a dying building. Between them, the Minefield waited for impatience. Atlas pushed his nose under Lena's hand. He was shaken, not from fear, from urgency. Lena whispered, "What are you trying to tell me?" The dog backed away from the gap, then moved along the school wall, sniffing fast. He stopped at a pile of broken desks, exposed through a collapsed classroom window. His ears lifted. Then he grabbed something with his teeth and pulled. A strip of cloth came loose. Mercy Red Cross. The edges were burned. Across the back, written in black marker, were coordinates and a date from 4 years ago. The mission Krill had erased. Lena's voice floated up from the darkness. "My mother said Mercy would come back." The words landed like a wound. Behind Lena, Krill shouted, "Do not touch that patch." Atlas turned with the patch in his mouth and ran, not toward Mason, but toward Captain Voss. He carried evidence across the Minefield like a witness who finally knew which human could still be trusted. Then, a third explosion sounded from beyond the far ridge. The front half of the unit screamed over the radio, and Nima's breathing changed. The radio erupted with overlapping voices. "Front element hit. Repeat, front element hit. Smoke on the ridge. Medic pin. Dawn not cross the street." Captain Voss snatched the handset from a wounded corporal and pressed it hard against her ear. "This is Voss. Report status static clawed back." Lena could hear only fragments from where she crouched beside the schoolhouse. Man cut off beyond the Minefield. A second blast somewhere near the far alley. One vehicle. 2 soldiers unable to move. The unit had not only been split, it was being squeezed. Krill seized the moment. "Captain, this is exactly why we extract now." Voss held up one hand to silence him, still listening. Lena turned back to the gap. "Nima, stay with me. Take slow breaths. It's heavy." Nima whispered, "I know. My chest hurts." Lena's training re-ranced her fear into questions. "Can you count with me? I'm scared." "Me too." Lena sighed before she could stop herself. The honesty made the child quiet. Then Nima whispered, "Grown-ups can be scared. Only the useful ones." A faint sound came from below. Might be a laugh, might be a sob. Atlas returned to Lena's side without the patch. He had delivered it to Voss, then retraced his own path back across the lethal road with the focus of a creature who understood that the clock was shrinking. Dusk eyes were wet from smoke. Lena touched his head. "Good boy." The words nearly broke her. 4 years ago, she had said the same thing to another dog in another ruined village. A black shepherd named Rook Hatpole. 2 children from a clinic fire before the roof came down. Officially, Rook never existed. Officially, no children were recovered. Officially, Lena had abandoned her post. Unofficially, Lena still heard barking in her sleep. Atlas pressed his forehead into her shoulder just once, then he moved to the rubble and began to dig. "Stop," Lena whispered. "Easy." He stopped immediately, but his paws had exposed a narrow opening beneath a broken desk frame. Through it, Lena could see more of Nima's trapped position. The metal pinning her leg was part of a window grate. A concrete slab rested above it, balanced against a beam that was cracked almost through. If they lifted the wrong piece, the slab would drop. If they did nothing, the child would suffocate or bleed internally. Lena scanned the schoolroom. Her eyes landed on something half buried in chalk dust. A length of curtain rod, bent but strong. A lever. She hated the thought before it fully formed. Captain, she called. I may be able to relieve pressure enough to slide her free, but I need 2 hands and someone to wash the beam. Voss answered, I can send 1 soldier, not at Voss. The safe path that had brought Lena here was no longer safe for another person. The last tremor must have shifted dust, exposed something, hidden something else. Atlas' warning was absolute. Lena looked down at the dog. Tennis us. Mason's voice cracked over the road. Rise, talk me through it. You need to conserve strong. I need to be useful. She glanced back. He was pale, but his eyes were open. His hand was clamped over his wound. A young soldier beside him looked close. 2 tears. Lena raised her voice. I have a pinchill, possible crush injury, unstable overhead load. I need to create space without shifting the slab. Mason breathed through pain. Atlas can brace. No, he has done it before. Lena stared at the dog. Atlas was already moving. He crawled through the classroom window gap, careful over broken glass, then wedged his body into the narrow space beside the cracked beam, not under the slab, down against a smaller support piece. His shoulder pressed into wood, paws planted, muscles quivering. Lena's throat closed. Nah, she said again, softer. Atlas looked at her. In his eyes was no fear, no confusion, only command, not from Mason, not from training, from the ancient contract between humans and dogs, written in firelight and blood and impossible rescues. Mason called. He is buying you seconds. Use them. Lena gripped a curtain rod. Nima, she said, I am going to make a little room. When I tell you, pull your knee toward your chest if you can. It hurts. I know. You can cry. You can scream. But when I say pull, what if I can? Then that will help. A pause. Is Atlas an angel? Lena's eyes burned. No, has better. He's here. She slid the rod beneath the metal grate and leaned slowly. The first movement produced a groan from the entire schoolhouse. Dust rained down. Atlas pushed harder against the brace, his claws scraping concrete. Easy, Mason called, listening from across the road like a man hearing a bomb through a wall. Not more than that. Lena held the pressure. Nima, pull. A scream tore from the rubble. The sound pierced every soldier in the street. Pull, Lena shouted. Nima's strapped leg moved half an inch. The metal shifted. The beam cracked louder. Atlas yelped. Lena almost let go. Do not stop, Mason shouted. She leaned again, every muscle in her back burning. The grate lifted another inch. Nima sobbed and dragged herself forward, fingers clawing at dust. Lena reached through the gap, caught the child's wrist, and pulled. For 1 perfect second, Nima moved free. Then the slab above them dropped. Atlas threw himself sideways, shoulder slamming into the brace. The claws paused, not stopped, paused. Lena dragged Nima through the opening and rolled back as concrete exploded where the child's legs had been. Dust swallowed them. Atlas disappeared beneath the falling classroom wall. Mason screamed the dog's name. Lena clutched Nima to her chest, coughing, blind, alive. And from beside the rubble, Atlas did not bark. Silence after a collapse is cruel, because it asks everyone to imagine the worst. Lena lay on her side with Nima curled against her ribs. Both of them coated in white dust, both coughing so hard their bodies shook. The child was lighter than Lena expected, all bones and trembling breath. Lena ran her hands over Nima's head. neck, shoulders, spine, searching for injuries while her own mind screamed one name. Atlas. Across the minefield, Mason was trying to rise. Two soldiers held him down. "Let me go," he shouted, voice breaking. "Atlas, Sergeant, don't move." Captain Voss ordered. Mason fought anyway until pain took his strength. He collapsed back into the dirt, face twisted with helpless fury. Lena lifted her head toward the ruined classroom. Dust tore from the fresh collapse. Broken desks jutted out at wild angles. The support beam had vanished beneath a layer of concrete and plaster. No bark, no whine, no scratch. Nima's small fingers clutched Lena's vest. "Where is the dog?" Lena could not answer. Her medical training forced her hands to move even, while her heart refused. She checked Nima's airway, breathing, pulse. The child's right leg was bruised and bleeding, but free. A dangerous swelling had started below the knee. Crush injury was possible. Internal bleeding possible. Shock certain. "Nima, look at me." Lena sighed. "Keep your eyes open." The girl blinked up. She was maybe 8 years old. Her hair was tangled with dust. Around her neck hung a string with a small metal charm shaped like a red cross. Lena touched it. "Nima whispered, my mother gave it." "Where is your mother?" The girl's lips trembled. "She went to find mercy." Lena went very still. Before she could ask more, a sound came from the rubble. Not bark, a scrape. Everyone heard it. Mason stopped struggling. Voss turned. Another scrap. Then a faint, muffled whine. Atlas was alive. Lena lowered Nima carefully behind a broken wall section and crawled toward the sound. "Atlas, hold on, boy." The scrape came again from beneath a slab near the classroom doorway. Lena reached it and began clearing loose debris with her hands. Krill shouted, "Rise, leave the dog. The child is the objective now." The word objective now. The word objective, not patient, objective. Captain Voss heard it too. She turned slowly toward Krill. In her hand was the burned, red patch Atlas had carried to her. "Major, why is a child in a collapse to your objective?" Krill's face closed. "That is classified. My unit is bleeding in a minefield because of your classified route. You are not cleared." Voss stepped closer to him, careful in her mark space. "Then clear me fast." Lena kept digging, her fingers straws. Something warm and furred. "Atlas," she breathed. The dog whined again. A piece of broken wood pinned his hindquarters beneath the edge of a slab. His front half was trapped in a narrow pocket, muzzle pressed sideways, eyes open and frantic. Blood darkened the fur along one flank. Lena slid her hand to his neck. His pulse was racing. "I found him," she shouted. Mason sobbed once, a sound he tried to turn into a cough. "Can you free him?" Voss asked. Lena examined the debris. The slab pinning Atlas was smaller than the one that had threatened Nima, but it rested against a chain of rubble. "Pull wrong, and more raw. I need leverage again." Lena said, "And I am..." "You have neither." Krill snapped. The rich team reports movement. "We extract the child and leave." Lena looked at him over her shoulder. "You knew she was here." Krill did not deny it. Nima stood behind the wall. Her voice was tiny. "He took Mama's book." The entire road went quiet. Krill's eyes flashed. "The child is delirious." Lena crawled it back to Nima, leaving one hand on Atlas as long as possible before she had to let go. "What book?" Nima reached under her torn shirt and pulled out a folded piece of plastic. Inside was a photograph, cracked and faded. It showed a younger Lena kneeling beside 3 children outside an aid tent. She wore the same red cross patch now in Voss' hand. On the back, Written in hurried letters were 2 words: "Fine mercy." Lena could not breathe. The mission 4 years ago had not ended when she was evacuated. Someone had survived. Someone had been searching for her. Someone had given a child her face like a map. Nima touched the photograph. "Mama said you saved people when bad soldiers said no." Creel moved too fast. He lunged toward the photo. Atlas erupted from the rubble with a snarl so fierce it seemed impossible he was injured. He could not stand fully, but his front body surged forward, teeth bared. Stopping Creel in place, Lena threw herself over Nima. Captain Voss raised her weapon again. This time fully. "Major Creel," she said. "Step back." Creel looked at the rifle, then at the soldiers watching him. His mask cracked. "Can tell us?" He smiled without warmth. "Evidence." The word confirmed everything. The minefield, the route, the arrest mission, the child beneath the rubble, Atlas reacting before the blast, Mason carrying Lena's call sign on his tag. All of it circled one truth Creel had tried to bury twice. Lena looked at Mason across the road. "Who gave you my tag?" Mason's eyes filled with shame. Her mother, Nima's small hand tightened around the photograph. "Me mother is not dead," the girl whispered. Creel's face went pale again. Then the radio crackled from the front half of the unit. A woman's voice came through the static, weak, adult, urgent. "Mercy, if you hear this, do not trust Creel." Lena felt the world narrow to the radio. The voice came again, buried under static and distant gunfire. "Mercy, child carries ledger. Creel knows. Do not let him take her." Nima sat up so fast Lena had to catch her. "Mama," the girl cried. The sound shattered something in every person listening. Captain Voss grabbed the handset. "Unknown caller. Identify yourself." Static. Then. "Anaya Darzi. Field interpreter. Mercy mission witness. Wounded. East Alley." Creel's face hardened into something beyond anger. "That transmission is enemy manipulation." Nima screamed at him. "That is my mother." Lena held the child back. Her own hands were shaking. "Anaya Darzi." The name returned through 4 years of fog. Lena remembered a young interpreter with a green scarf and a notebook always tucked under her vest. Anaya had translated for mothers. Kanaya had translated for mothers. Commanders fight no wounds. She had also watched Creel order a gate closed while civilians begged outside. Lena had thought Anaya died in the fire. Creel had told everyone she died. "Mason," Lena called. "You said Anaya gave you my call sign." Mason nodded weakly. 3 months ago, she found our patrol near the border. Said if anything happened, Atlas would know the scent from the patch. I thought she was paranoid. Creel laughed once, sharp and ugly. "You thought correctly." She was a compromised asset carrying stolen material. Moss sighed. "You mean evidence." He ignored her and spoke to the soldiers instead. "All of you are hearing partial information in an active combat zone. Think that a woman appears after 4 years with a child and documents. A minefield detonates. A radio conveniently accuses the officer assigned to protect you. This is theater." Atlas snarled from the rubble. Lena had managed to clear enough debris for his front legs, but his rear body remained pinned. The dog's eyes locked on Creel with undiluted certainty. Voss looked at Atlas, then at Lena. "Rise. Can you move the child back across?" "Not safely without Atlas guiding." "And Atlas, I can free him if the slab holds." Mason called. "Use the strap from my pack." Lena looked across the minefield. "I can reach out." Mason's jaw clenched. Then he pulled the strap from his own vest with one hand, biting down on pain. He looked at Atlas. "Boy," he said, "retrieve." Atlas tried to move and yelp. "No," Lena said. He spinned. Mason's eyes went to Nima. The child stared back, terrified but alert. "Nima," Mason called gently. "Can you throw?" Lena shook her head. "She's injured." "He can." Krill stepped forward. "The child stays where she is." Voss F. Rifle corrected him instantly. "You stay where you are." Nima took the coiled strap from the edge of Lena's reach. Her hands trembled. The distance to Mason was not far in normal life. In a minefield, it was a canyon. Not to him. Mason's seat to Atlas. "Hook it on the wood near his back leg." Lena understood. If they could loop the strap around the pinning debris, Mason and the soldiers on the safe side might pull at the right angle, shifting the wood enough for Lena to drag Atlas free. Risky, desperate. Better attend waiting for the dog to bleed under concrete. Lena guided Nima's hand. There. Under that gap, Nima pushed the strap through. Atlas, despite the pain, caught it gently in his teeth and dragged it toward the wood. He nudged it, paused once, then looked at Lena. "Good," Lena whispered. "Good boy." Lena secured the loop with shaking fingers. "Mason," she called. "Slow pull only. If the slab shifts, stop." "I hear you." Two soldiers braced behind Mason and took the strap. Mason insisted on holding the lead end, blood slicking his fingers. "On my count," Leo suddenly shouted. "You are wasting time on an animal while the evidence walks away." Voss turned. "There it is again. Evidence." Krill's nostrils flared. He knew he had said too much. Lena placed both hands under Atlas' chest. 2. Nima pressed the photograph to her heart. 3. The soldiers pulled. The wood shifted half an inch. Atlas screamed. Lena pulled him forward. "Stop!" she shouted. The slab ground but held. Atlas' hind legs came free. He collapsed into Lena's lap, shaking, bleeding, alive. Mason dropped the strap and bowed his head, overcome. Lena pressed Rosa. "You are not John, are you?" Atlas lifted his head. Even wounded, even exhausted, he turned toward the east alley, toward Anaya's voice. The front half of the unit was still cut off there. Nima's mother was wounded somewhere beyond the school. Mason needed evacuation. Nima needed treatment. Atlas could barely stand, and Krill, trapped among them, had become more dangerous than the mice. Captain Voss made her decision. "We move in 2 stages," she said. Rice stabilizes the child and Atlas. Hill gets pressure and fluids. 10. Atlas, US to the alley. Krill's voice dropped low. "Captain, if you transmit any of this, you will destroy carriers above yours." Voss looked at him. Then they should have built their careers on something stronger than buried children. The radio crackled again. Anaya's voice came faint, urgent, mercy. He planted the old map. The safe path is false. Lena's blood turned cold. Atlas suddenly lunged at Captain Voss' boots, knocking her backward. A buried mine clicked beneath the dust where Voss had been about to step. And Krill's smile. That made it worse. It was not an explosion. Not yet. It was a tiny mechanical confession beneath the dust. A hidden mouth, opening under Captain Voss' boot print. Atlas had knocked her backward just before she placed full weight on it. But the disturbed ground now held all of them hostage. Nobody breathed fast. Voss lay on her back, eyes fixed on the spot where her foot had almost landed. Atlas stood over her with trembling legs, blood dripping from his side, growling at the earth itself. Krill's smile vanished when he realized everyone had seen it. "You know, Lena." said. Her voice was quiet enough to frighten even herself. Creel lifted his chin. He knew old maps are unreliable. Nah, Mason's face was ghost pale, but fury kept him awake. You knew that path was false. Anaya's warning crackled again through the radio, weaker now. Creel marked the wrong lane. Wanted ledger recovered. No witnesses. Nima buried her face against Lena's vest. Mama, Lena wrapped one arm around her and looked at Voss. Captain, don't move. Voss gave a dry laugh from the ground. I had not planned to you. Atlas lowered his nose near the triggered patch, sniffing carefully. He backed away, then nudged Voss' shoulder in direction that looked impossible. Mason saw it. He's telling you to roll along your own fall line. Slow, will that set it off? Voss asked. Mason's mouth tightened. He says nah. Voss stared at a wounded dog above her. That is the most terrifying vote of confidence I have ever received. Lena glanced at Atlas. Trust him. Voss rolled, exactly as Atlas guided. Inch by inch, dust clung to her uniform. Her jaw clenched. But she did not rush. Atlas moved with her, placing himself between her and the mine as if courage could shield metal. When she cleared the danger, the entire unit exhaled. Then Creel moved. He lunged not toward Voss, not toward the road, but toward Nima. Lena turned too late. Creel grabbed the child's arm and yanked her from behind the broken wall. Nima screamed. Lena seized her waist, but Creel had leverage and desperation. The photograph fell into the dust. The plastic sleeve cracked open, spilling not just the picture, but folded pages so thin they ledger. Names, dates, coordinates, medical denial orders, civilian casualty counts marked as unconfirmed. Lena saw her own call sign written in Anaya's hand beside a list of survivors. Evidence of the mission Creel had arrested. Evidence he had led them to the minefield to retrieve. Before Anaya could expose him, Creel dragged Nima backward. No one comes closer. At last snarled. Mason reached for his sidearm, but his hand shook too badly. Voss met Creel, but Nima was in front of him. Lena rose slowly, palms open. Let her go. Creel's arm locked around the child's chest. You don't understand what this will do you? Lena asked. He understand. 2 operations, 2 allowances, to every officer who signed off, believing the village was empty. Was it? His silence answered. Was it empty, Major? Creel looked at her with hatred. You were a nurse. Gra. You were supposed to treat the wounded we approved. The wounded you approved? Mason echoed. Nima cried. You hurt Mama. Creel tightened his grip. Your mother should have stayed dead. That sentence changed the air. Voss' finger tightened on the trigger. But Atlas moved first. He did not charge. He limped sideways, away from Creel, toward the blue sandal he had found earlier. He picked it up gently and carried it into the open. Then he dropped it beside one of the thin ledger pages. Nima stopped struggling. Her eyes went to the sandal. My brother, she whispered. Lena felt the story beneath the story open like a wound. Anaya had not only carried evidence, she had lost a child in the arrest mission. Nima's brother had been one of the children Lena had tried to save. One of the names turned into unconfirmed. One of the ghosts used to bury her career. Atlas nudged the sandal closer to Lena. It was not just a clue. It was a witness. Creel's grip loosened for half a second as the emotional force of that small shoe struck everyone. Lena took the opening. She stepped forward, grabbed Nima, and twisted the child down out of Creel's arm. Creel stumbled backward, his boot landing outside Alice's marked path. Atlas barked once. Creel froze. A second click sounded beneath his heel. The minefield had finally answered the man who trusted it too much. His face drained of color. "Don't move." Mason sighed, voice flat. Creel looked at Lena. For the first time, no command remained in him, only fear. "Help me." Lena stared at him, the child shaking in her arms, Atlas bleeding beside her, Mason dying by inches, Anaya fading on the radio, and the ledger pages scattered like judgment across the dust. Every oath she had ever taken rose against every wound he had ever caused. Captain Voss lowered her rifle slightly. "Raise." Lena closed her eyes for one beat. Then she opened them. "I'm a nurse," she said. "I don't choose who deserves to live." But before she could move toward him, the radio screamed with Anaya's final warning. "Mercy, run, secondary charge under the school." The words hit harder than any blast. Lena looked down at the rubble where Nima had been trapped, at the classroom where Atlas had nearly been buried, at the scattered ledger pages, at the wounded men, at Creel frozen on a mine, and understood the cruelty of the design. The minefield had split the unit. The false map had trapped them. The school had hidden the witness, and the secondary charge was meant to erase everything that remained. "How long?" Voss demanded into the radio. Static. "Anaya, how long?" A wet came back signal. Unstable. Maybe minutes. Maybe less. Nima screamed for her mother. Lena grabbed the ledger pages, shoved them into her medical pouch, and scooped Nima against her hip despite the child's injured leg. "Captain, weed everyone off this road." Voss barked at orders with instant clarity. "Rear team, prepare casualties. Front team, stay put until Atlas marks." Mason tried to sit up. Atlas, as if insulted, forced himself to stand. His legs shook. Blood ran down his flank. Dust covered his eyes. But he moved toward Mason first and pressed his forehead to the handler's chest. Mason's hand found. "Head is down enough." Atlas pulled away. Lena saw Mason understand before anyone else did. The dog was not asking permission. He was saying goodbye to the possibility of stopping. "Finally," Mason whispered. "Atlas, not like before." Each step cost him. He marked a new route, away from the school, different from the false lane Creel had trusted. The soldiers followed in staggered silence, carrying Mason on a door panel, dragging the wounded, guiding each other by touch and breath. Lena carried Nima until her knees trembled, then shifted the child to her back and kept going. Creel remained frozen behind them. "Rise!" he shouted. "You would help me." Lena stopped. Every second mattered. The school could detonate. Mason could bleed out. Anaya could die before they reached her. Nima sobbed against Lena's neck. Voss looked at Lena. "Your call?" It was the cruelest mercy of command, trusting the person with the deepest wound. Lena handed Nima to Voss and turned back. "No," Nima cried. "He hurt Mama." "No, Lena, sit. Then leave him." Lena looked at the child, and in her face saw every survivor who would one day ask whether justice meant becoming what hurt them. "If I leave him because I hate him," Lena said softly, "he still controls who I am." She followed Atlas' earlier marks back to toward Trio. The major's face shone with sweat. His heel remained pressed into the dust. "I can't move," he whispered. "Then don't. How's you get me out?" "I might not be able to." Panic widened his eyes. "You have to." "No," Lena said. I have to try. The difference landed. She crossed several feet away, studying the ground without pretending. She was a bomb expert. Alice limped here, beside her, sniffed once, then gave a sharp warning whine. Creel's boot was not on the main trigger. It was touching a disturbed plate near a cracked stone. Any rescue would require tools and time they did not have. Lena's stomach sank. Creel saw it. What? She did not lie. I can't safely move you. His mouth opened, but no sound came. Behind them, the school gave a deep metallic groan. Alice barked toward the evacuation route. Lena stood. Creel's voice collapsed. Please? She looked at him then. Truly looked. Not as a rank, as a fight man who had buried children under words like security and strategy until the earth itself held him accountable. Tell the truth, she said. What? Out loud on the radio. Her witness. Give Nima her mother's name back. Creel stared. The school groaned again. Lena tossed him the handset. It landed near his shaking hand. For once, she said, save someone besides yourself. Then she turned and followed Atlas. Creel screamed after her, cursed her, begged her, then fell silent. A moment later, his voice came over the open channel, broken and raw. This is Major Owen Creel. 4 years ago, civilian casualties were knowingly suppressed under Operation Glass Archer. Nurse Lena Rice attempted unauthorized rescue of non-combatants. Her report was altered. Interpreter Anaya Darzi survived and carried the original ledger. The child, Nima Darzi, is a protected witness. I diverted to recover documents. Before disclosure, the confession rolled across every radio in the unit. Voss stared at Lena as she returned. Mason, pale on the door panel, smiled through pain. Nima clutched the red cross char at her throat. Then the school exploded. The blast threw Lena forward. He punched across her back. Alice crashed into her side, driving her behind a stone wall as debris screamed overhead. For several seconds, the world became fire and dust again. When Lena opened her eyes, her ears rang with a high, lonely tone. Atlas. The dog lay beside her, breathing, alive. Beyond the wall, the school was gone. So was the place where Creel had stood. No one cheered. Some endings were too heavy for triumph. The radio crackled. Anaya's voice came faintly from the east alley. Mercy. Lena grabbed it. The handset. I'm here. A pause. Then Anaya wept. Is my daughter alive? Lena looked at Nima, who was reaching toward the radio with both hands. Yes, Lena said, tears cutting clean lines through the dust on her face. And she is coming to you. Atlas rose one final time and turned toward the east alley. The word had found the child, exposed the lie, saved the captain, freed himself from Rubble, and carried the unit through a field designed to bury them. Now he would lead a daughter back to her mother. And for the first time in 4 years, Lena followed her old call sign not into shame, but home. By sunset, Nima was in her mother's arms. Mason was alive. Atlas was wrapped in bandages. And Lena's arrest report was no longer a ghost. Some heroes do not ask to be remembered. Some dogs remember for them. If this story moved you, share where you are watching from, and subscribe to Mercy Under Fire for more stories of courage, loyalty, and justice.